So while everyone's leaving me, I want you to think about your Hebrew name. If you have a Hebrew name, think it. There's at least one in the room, the newest Hebrew name. But if you know your Hebrew name, I want you to bring it to mind. Mine is Harav Noach ben Ephraim be'Elisheva. And more than just a name, this Hebrew, this is actually a formula. It's a patronymic formula, which means that it's a name that references my ancestry. That's what every Hebrew name is. The structure is the name, then child of, then parent name and parent name. Harav Noach, Rabbi Noah, son of Ephraim and Elisheva. My parents are definitely not Ephraim and Elisheva. My name is the same in Hebrew as it is in English. But this is a formula. And it's used not very often. It's used on milestones such as birth, weddings, aliyah, yahrzeit. The Hebrew name is invoked as a calling card to the past and the future. It's a declaration of lineage, a declaration of your position in a chain of ancestral history. It's a totem that links you to where you're from and where you're going. I'm talking about names because it relates very much to this week's Torah portion, which is the first in the book of Exodus. I'm going to nerd out here a little bit, but the book of Exodus is the Greek word for the book. Exodus is the Greek word for exit. I know because I saw it on a Athens subway sign, exit. Exodus is actually the name for exit in Greek. But the Hebrew word for the book of Exodus has nothing to do with leaving. The Hebrew word is Shmot, which is names. If it were directly translated from Exodus, you might think the book is called Yetziah, which is Hebrew for exit, but that's not the case. Yetziah is the Hebrew word for Exodus, but the Hebrew name for the book is in fact Shmot, names. So called because the opening lines of the text are Ve'ele Shmot B'nai Yisrael. In English, these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob. Anticipating the epic telling of how the Israelites crossed over into freedom, the Torah introduces the book of Exodus by naming the characters as humans with personhood, with bones, with breath, with life, with a name. I'm trying to make a point. So important is this story that we tell it at prayer services all year round. We just did with Mi Chamocha. That's from the book of Exodus. We say it at Kiddush on Friday night, Zecher L'Tziat Mitzrayim. And of course, we tell the story of the Exodus at the Passover Seder. But Sefer Shmot has me thinking that it isn't just the Exodus. This book is about the names of all the people that went through it. I believe this story is at its most powerful when we appreciate that these events befell people. To remember that everyone has a name is to live as if everyone's world is as vivid as your own. Maybe under vastly different circumstances, but endowed with that same gift of breath, of having a life. I'm going to read a poem now. It's called Everyone Has a Name, L'chol Ish Yesh Shem, from the Israeli poet Zelda, who died in 1980. Each of us has a name, given by God and given by our parents. Each of us has a name, given by our stature and our smile, and given by what we wear. Each of us has a name, given by the mountains and given by our walls. Each of us has a name, given by the stars and given by our neighbors. Each of us has a name, given by our sins and given by our longing. Each of us has a name, given by our enemies and given by our love. Each of us has a name, given by our celebrations and given by our work. Each of us has a name, given by the seasons and given by our blindness. Each of us has a name, given by the sea and given by our death. Our Jewish tradition has us reciting names constantly, long lists of names. It's a remembrance of all those that God held near. It's as if we stop reciting Hebrew names, we'll die. Our story will fade, cut off at the root. So whereas the book of Exodus teaches a national saga, The Book of Names, that same text, teaches a quieter, more private view that is all about the names of the people who live and die. Robert Alter, the Berkeley Bible scholar, puts it this way: the unacknowledged heresy underlying most modern English versions of the Bible is the use of translation as a vehicle for explaining the Bible instead of representing it in another language. And in the most egregious instances, this amounts to explaining away the Bible. In other words, we should take a hint from the words, from the fact that this book is referred to in Hebrew as the Book of Names. A name humanizes a person, and it's really a significant Jewish spiritual practice. So significant that one of the most important events in our collective conscience, the Exodus, is introduced with the names of the people there and not the event itself. Just imagine for a second that the Israel-Gaza war were referred to as, these are the names of the ones who were at Kibbutz, Kfar Aza. Or these are the names who were at home innocent in Khan Yunis. Imagine that the homelessness crisis in our city was referred to as, these are the names of the people living on the streets. Suddenly it's human. It's not an event or a crisis. In Judaism, we use names so much. Jewish geography, our long Kaddish list, being called up to the Torah. It can be very easy to forget that there's a name attached to a body. But Judaism provides ample opportunity to get out of that rhythm and come back to what's at the core, which is the name. Even God's name is sometimes referred to as Hashem, which means the name. So we're beginning Exodus this Shabbat, and we'll be finished reading the book of Exodus before Passover even starts, because that's how our Jewish Torah cycle goes. It's as if the whole first part of our year is dominated with the telling and retelling of this story, which is so recognizable, not just in Jewish religious spaces, but in religious and political spaces across civilization. And alongside those powerful lessons of the Exodus is the Hebrew name for the whole affair, the Book of Names, which teaches that every one of us has a name. Remembering to use it for good is a spiritual practice that can strengthen your will and aid in the pursuit of peace. Back to your Hebrew name. Being Ben or Bat, being someone's child, is not just biological. It's also an essential Jewish belief that states that you belong and are important to the unfolding of the story. May that be God's will. Ken Yehi Ratzon. Shabbat Shalom.